Hiya, I'm Janette, by the way. I want to speak briefly about how to accept criticism. Even that word criticism can make some of us feel really uncomfortable. We don't like it. We don't like people telling us about something that we consider maybe okay with us, and then they're going to attack it and have a go at it. We do feel attacked. Often our response to criticism is fight or flight, and so we do see it as threatening. However, there is a place where criticism is really helpful for us growing. If we're able to accept some criticism and to recognize it's coming from a good place. It may not always be well said, but it is at heart coming from a good place. Then we can grow, develop, learn, and improve. I want to share with you how to accept criticism, okay? And this is good or bad. First of all, we need to acknowledge that it's going to challenge us, it's going to trigger some negative emotions. However, accepting it is great for personal growth. Frank A. Clark says criticism is like rain. He says it should be gentle enough to nourish, just the way that rain falls on plants, it nourishes them. But the rain shouldn't be so heavy that it damages the roots. Let me repeat his quote. Frank A. Clark says, criticism, like rain, should be gentle enough to nourish a man's growth without destroying his roots. And this is what we want. Whether we are giving criticism or receiving criticism, we want criticism that is going to nourish. We need to layer it. We need to say, you are doing things really well. There are some real positives in what you're doing. However, here is an area for improvement. That's a wonderful way to layer a piece of criticism. In receiving criticism, we must understand the nature of it. And so what we need to do is to define the criticism. That's the first thing we want to do. We want to recognize that criticism can be constructive and destructive. It can be both. Constructive criticism is intended to help you to improve. Destructive criticism is intended, of course, to bring you down, to make you feel less than, to stop you in your tracks and to derail you. Understanding this is the first step to accepting positive criticism, because it means that we now recognize there are two types, constructive and destructive. Okay? Our brains, as I said earlier, are wired to reject criticism. We don't like it. We react to it in a really negative way. And that's what your brain is going to do. So you need to override that. You need to recognize not all criticism is bad. Okay, not all criticism deserves an insult. You know, there are some people who, if you criticize them, they will only see it as an insult and they're going to insult you back. They'll find something rude to say about you. And you're going to be there feeling, but I didn't mean it in that way. I wasn't trying to hurt you. But they feel hurt because they see all criticism in that way. Today, let's mount up and be open to the fact that there is some criticism that's going to help us to grow. John Wooden says you can't let praise or criticism get to you. It's a weakness to get caught up in either one. So you don't want to be constantly praised for everything, because that will stop you from developing, because that's all you want to hear. And never hearing how things could be improved and made better, that's going to hold you back in life. And always hearing where you could improve will have the same effect. It's going to hold you back as well, because you're going to begin to reject it. You're going to begin to be fed up of hearing this constant criticism. And so there needs to be a balance. Number 2, reframe the criticism. Talk about the opportunity for growth when you hear criticism, rather than looking at it and saying, hey, listen, this person's speaking negatively about me, they're having a go. What did they mean by I could have done this differently? I could have done that better. Rather than taking it in that way, being offended, how about talking about, so-and-so said I could have done this in that way. Did they say that? Okay, because maybe you're hearing through a third party. So rather than being set up to insult them, say bad things, just say, maybe they've got a point, thanks for sharing that. That'll send the gossip on their way. So consider it. Consider, rather than seeing criticism as a personal attack, that it can be a valuable tool for learning and self-improvement. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches us to challenge negative thoughts. It says that when we're in situations that appear very negative, we should try to reframe them and so look at them differently. And by viewing criticism as constructive feedback, because criticism is going to be one of the few opportunities you get for feedback, you can reduce the emotional impact. You don't have to be hurt. Your feelings aren't hurt. You're not offended, but you can focus on the lesson that you can learn through it. And so it's an opportunity for growth. There you go. You're growing. Now, one of the things you want to do when you hear a word of criticism or something you feel is aimed against you is pause. Hold it. Just think for a moment. Just Begin to breathe and consider, where is this coming from? What does it mean? If you're not clear on what's being said or you feel offended, just say, could you explain to me exactly what you mean by that? Or would you mind saying that again in a different way? I don't think I've understood you. Okay. Sometimes it might be delivered very harshly. Not everybody knows how to give good. They know how to give you the criticism in terms of what you need to improve, but they may not give it in a good way. Not everybody is gifted like that. So recognize that. Some people are just clumsy in how they say things, but they may not mean anything bad by it. The underlying message could be really valuable. And so just pause and discern, is the underlying message meant to be helpful? Are they really trying to hurt my feelings? Maybe not. This is painful. I feel uncomfortable with it. That's natural. But are they trying to hurt me? No, maybe not. Now, I have a quote from Winston Churchill who says, criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. You see, whilst it does hurt, it may be a tip-off, it may be the biggest clue you'll ever get that something isn't quite right, that you need to address something, that something needs to change. It could be a behaviour, could be an environmental change, it could be something that you need to change that nobody else will make you aware of but the critic. The critic could be doing you a favour, so bear that in mind. Remember, recognizing that criticism is either constructive or destructive is important, and you must filter out the unhelpful criticism. That's really important. You filter that out, okay, but consider any valid points that it contains. Repeated exposure to harsh criticism can lead to very poor self-esteem. It can make you feel really bad about yourself. And so if you know that there's somebody who is constantly critical, they make you feel bad about yourself, make you feel anxious, you don't really want to be around them, then what do? You separate from them. You don't spend excessive time in their company. That's really important. Your boundaries are important. Set your boundaries in place so that you're not continuously exposing yourself to negativity. This is somebody who's simply dragging you down. Don't allow them to do that. Okay, protect yourself, but remain open in future to constructive criticism. That person may come to you from a negative place, but some criticism is helpful and constructive. So set your boundaries and develop a strong sense of self-worth. Listen, when you know who you are, no one can tell you about yourself. Know yourself, know what your strengths are. Know the good things about yourself. Know what your passion is. Then no one can tell you who you are because you know who you are. And Louise Hay says, you have been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. What she's saying is self-love is so valuable. Recognizing and acknowledging your strengths, the good things about you, mean that you will function at a higher level. You'll be more confident, more ready to explore, more ready to take risks, more ready to set goals and achieve them. It'll be a better life. So remember that if you find yourself in a position where you're receiving negative criticism, you must respond gracefully. I know this is really tough. It's not easy, but be nice, okay? Stay calm and stay composed. Don't get triggered, okay? It's important to stay calm when receiving criticism because a measured response is going to reflect your maturity. You see, if you just begin to insult the person and you're rude to them, then this is showing that you're emotionally immature. It really is. And so therefore, if this is your response to be disrespectful to somebody who criticizes you, you're actually showing the world your emotional immaturity. So let's grow up a little bit and be mature. And we can do this growing up at any age and any stage, okay? So be willing to learn and remember, thank a critic. Criticism, whether constructive or not, just thank them. Just say thanks for that. Show that grace, show that maturity, and just leave it there and move on to other things. If somebody is giving you criticism and you know it's constructive, but you still find it's a little bit difficult to take, still say thank you, because it will leave the door open to other communication. Change the subject, move on, but you don't have to lose a friendship over it. Not because somebody wants to tell you something that it may be difficult for other people to tell you, but they know will ultimately be for your good. Just say thank you. Okay? Science says that emotional intelligence includes the ability to manage your emotions. It's being able to not get angry at the drop of a hat. It's to respond appropriately. And when you begin to display emotional intelligence, it means that you actually become a better person. It allows you greater success in life, and in your regular life, your general life, and in your professional life. And my quote on success comes from Aristotle, and it is: criticism is something we can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. Do you want to be a nothing? I certainly don't, and I know you don't either. And so therefore begin to recognize that with criticism and handling criticism correctly, you can be something, do something, and what was it? He said, be something. Absolutely, of course you can, and you are. Number 5, cultivate a growth mindset. Now, a growth mindset is when you see challenges as opportunities for growth. You see them as opportunities to be better. You look at something, you say, oh my gosh, I can't do it. And then you say, it's okay. With this challenge that I've been given now, I'm going to be able to do it over time, and I'm going to be able to do it really well. So let me just learn how to do it and get it out of the way. This is a growth mindset. We decide that we're going to be dedicated and do some work. We're going to put some work in, sometimes hard work, in order to achieve and accomplish a goal. Now, according to Carol Dweck, who's a psychologist, she says that individuals with a growth mindset are stronger, they are more successful, and they're far less stressed out. They don't get as stressed as the rest of us because they're not worrying themselves about the future and what's going to happen. They decide that they're equal to the challenge and they're going to go for it. And they see criticism as an opportunity to learn. They don't see it as something that's going to drag them down, but they see it as something that's going to pivot them forward. So what we need to do in life is to adopt a learner's attitude. What we want to see is that we might have a setback in life, that's very true, but by learning how to do something we couldn't do before, we're now pushing ourselves forward and we're having and experiencing personal growth. The rain's distracting me a little bit. My quote for encouragement today is, in the end, people will judge you anyway. So don't live your life impressing others, live your life impressing yourself. And that comes from Eunice Camacho Infante. And I agree with Eunice. Judge yourself, impress yourself. I love that. I'm always going up against me. I'm like, Janette, how can you do this better than you did it before? Janette, that's not bad, but it's not really what you wanted. How are you going to make it better? You know, I constantly go up against myself. That's one of the things I do. And I'd encourage you to do the same. I haven't got time to compare myself to other people. I'm uniquely me, and so are you. So my final thought today is to view criticism as a tool for personal development. Remember that your ability to accept and to learn from criticism is going to be a tremendous strength and not a weakness. And my closing quote comes from one of my favorites, Eleanor Roosevelt. And Eleanor says, do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. Listen, there is no right in the eyes of some people. Whatever you do, the majority are not necessarily going to be with you. Do what's right for you. It doesn't matter if you're in the minority, as long as what you're doing is right for you. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.